Genesis 37 is the text. The title is The Cruelty of Convenient Covetousness. Convenient covetousness. The introduction, of course, is just the chapter. It tells us exactly what we need to know. We don't need to go anyplace else. Genesis 37, look at verse 1 to 4 to begin with. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. Okay, so this is where he's living. Verse 2. And these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph, Israel, that's Jacob, loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. Okay, so there's a conflict going on here. And here we find the usual Middle East conflict resolution. Let's kill him. They fight over the opportunity to fight. I mean, it's just war. Here we've got three classes of thinking going on. We have the brothers, the family unit here, the brothers conspiring to kill Joseph and put his body in a pit. That's in verse 20. And then we find Reuben comes out, and he proposes to put him in a pit but not kill him, because he's got a secret plan on the sly. He's going to come back and get him. Judah seizes the opportunity to make some money on him by selling him to the Ishmaelites. So we'll look at these three classes. So after this whole thing has taken place, they're probably sitting back thinking, oh man, that went just like we wanted, and you can feel the adrenaline rush of triumph. We got exactly what we wanted, and we made money on it too. Well, the plan was so perfectly executed that the brothers didn't even have to get their hands dirty. No knife was required. However, the unseen stain of Joseph's blood would stain their hands and defile their conscience for the next 22 years. Bad news. Just because a plan can be conspired and conceived and completed quickly doesn't mean it'll end peaceably. Make sure it's right, regardless of how hard it is, because it's harder to go the other way. Genesis 37, look at verse 20. He says, Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. He ain't going to be doing no more dreaming when he's dead. That's what they're thinking. So I'm going to call this group right here the mocking murderers. Look back at verse 18. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. They already had this plan. That evil, murderous rage was already in them. 19. And they said one to another, look at this word, Behold, this dreamer cometh. That word behold right there, we're going to catch back up with it in a minute. But this is sarcasm. Behold. Like passive aggressive here. Oh, look, here comes this great Joseph guy. Now, I say this, and Christians have a problem with this. Venting is the first round loaded in the revolver of rebellion. Don't let your mouth open up and start talking. That's exactly what they did. They all had the idea already, or most of them, that they wanted him dead. But once they started speaking it, they said, hey, we're all on the same page. Let's put a plan together. We're all wanting the same thing. Kill this one guy, he's an out. He doesn't fit in the group. He thinks he's better than us. 2 Samuel 6, verse 20, you see the same type thing. You could see it all through the Bible. I'm just going to give you a few times it happens. Then David returned to bless his household. 2 Samuel 6, verse 20. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How glorious was the king of Israel today." Now, she doesn't mean that. She's being sarcastic. She's venting. "I am mad. He's not acting like a king. I'm the daughter of Saul. I'm royalty, and he's bringing my good name down. I'm going to get back at him. How glorious. You really look like a king today." She's venting. Bad news. Stay away from that. Psalms 22, verse 8. This is a prophecy about Jesus Christ. It's what they tell him on the cross. The crowd will say this to him: "He trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him." That's sarcasm. That's venting. Oh, he was all proud about that God was going to take care of him, and, he was the right-hand man to God, and, well, let's see what happens now. We're killing him. Same thing they thought about Joseph. We're going to kill him. We'll see what happens to the dream then. In Matthew 27:29, this is Jesus being led to the cross. "And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, 'Hail, King of the Jews.'" Well, they were exactly right, but they didn't mean it. They were sarcastic remarks, saying, "Oh, we're about to kill you. We just put a crown of thorns on your head. We've just pierced your brow. Now, what kind of king are you?" Don't vent. Don't let your mouth open up. Talk to God. Don't talk to people. Matthew 27:42. Another thing they say: "He saved others. Himself he cannot save." What's all this business about salvation? Oh, you need some salvation now, and you ain't going to get it because you can't do it. That's venting. That's that passive-aggressive. That's the thing that's inbred in all humans. We were done wrong. Everybody needs to know about it. In Matthew 2, verse 16, this venting most of the time is just sometimes more cleverly than others, but it's just a way of mocking. Matthew 2, verse 16, we find another way to mock someone and vent. This is when the wise men have come through, and they ask Herod, "Hey, tell me, where's the one that's born king of the Jews? I've seen his star out there, and we came to worship him." Herod said, "Man, I don't know." He said, "But if there's a king of the Jews, let me know so I can, worship him. I want to come worship him too." No, he wanted to come worship him with a sword. So he says, "I tell you what, wise men, once y'all find him, come back here and tell me." But they didn't. God warned them, and they went back another way. Look at verse 16. "Then Herod, when he saw he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem." Now, how was he mocked? He was mocked because the wise men did not obey him. You ever mocked God? He told you to do something and you disobeyed? That's mocking God. Whew, that's tough. We better quit preaching. Murder. They were murderers. They said about Joseph, they said, "Let us slay him and cast him into some pit. It doesn't matter. He's worthless at this point. We're going to kill him." Murder. Now, we all agree murder's bad. The world would agree with that one too. I mean, they agree with it if it's talking about them. But if you're going to murder a drug dealer, they might not think that's too bad. If you're going to murder their enemy, they might not think it's too bad. No, it's bad, period. God says it's bad. Psalms 64, verse 5. The problem with murderers, just like we saw with the boys, is they congregate. It's a group of them. Psalm 64, verse 5. Notice the first word. They, it's a crowd, encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privately. They say, "Whom shall see them?" Watch out for the crowd. It's going to take some real guts to be a true Christian, because it's going to feel very lonely. Because the majority of what you find are going to be wicked. They're in the crowd. In Proverbs 1 verse 11, we see the same theme. Proverbs 1:11. If they, it's a crowd, say, come with us, let us wait for blood. Let us lurk privately for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down where? Into the pit. This is the same mindset as the brothers had when they said, we're going to kill him and throw him in a pit. It's the group, it's the wicked group, it's a crowd of murderers. In Proverbs 27 verse 4, he said, wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but I'll give you one better. He says, but who is able to stand before envy? Whew, that's tough. Now I want you to see one thing: murder's bad. We all understand that, I think. And we would all agree with that. The Bible clearly states murder is bad. Titus chapter 3. Titus 3 and 1 John 3. Titus 3 and 1 John 3. We'll begin in 1 John 3. 1 John 3 verse 15. He says, whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. Now we just saw murder's bad. Murder runs in a crowd. Wicked people. Hate gonna run in a crowd too. When a crowd gets together of these murderers, you can count on it. There's something they're talking about they cannot stand. They're hateful. He said, whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. And you know no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. Look at Titus 3 verse 3. Titus 3 verse 3. Paul's talking about your former life before you were saved and then after you're saved. What a change. Titus 3:3. For we ourselves also were sometimes foolish, disobedient, deceiving, serving divers lusts and pleasures. Now, look at these. All of these are almost the same word. Living in malice, that is hatred, and envy. That's that thing that was so bad in Proverbs. Then he can't say the word hate enough. Hateful and hating one another. That's the old man. That's the wrong crowd. We saw that crowd is synonymous with murder. Now, you might not actually murder an individual with a knife and, take their life. But we saw in 1 John, God says if you could and get away with it, you would if you hate him. Stay away from hatred. A Christian, God is love. We've heard that all our life. It's a fact. Well, so should you be. You're his son, aren't you? Or daughter, some of you. We should be loved too. The opposite of hate. We shouldn't be hating people. In Genesis 37 verse 26. Genesis 37 verse 26. Here's this murdering crowd. This is their mindset. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? He says, look, we need to make something out of it. It's not enough to just get rid of the problem. We need to benefit. That's covetousness. Now, the two run hand in hand. Murdering and covetousness. Now, we think of covetousness usually as wanting goods and wanting money, wanting this or wanting that, lust. However, it could also go to your own praise. I want popularity. I want peace. I want riches. I want the best of this or best of that. I want comfort. I want convenience. Okay? Guess what? That's covetous. Kick it out. What profit is it? We should ask this question, but have a longer view than what Judah did. Because what he was not seeing was the next 22 years of his life, with that conscience weighing heavy on him, that his brother's probably dead in Egypt. In Genesis 42, verse 22. Genesis 42, verse 22. Here we are, 22 years later. They're standing before what they think is one of the rulers of Egypt, but it's their brother. Genesis 42, 22. And Reuben answered them, he's talking to his brothers, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and you would not hear. Therefore, look at that word, behold. That was the word they used to start out their venting on how they were going to kill him. Behold also, his blood is required. What profit is it? Didn't profit at all. He says there, behold, the thing we thought was going to solve all our problems has just given us a headache we'll never get rid of. Behold, his blood, they thought he was dead, is required. What profit is it? Wasn't any profit. Okay, so that's the first one we saw. We saw the mocking murderers. Let's go back to our passage, Genesis 37. We'll see the mercenary for money. Mercenary for money. Genesis 37, verse 27. He says, Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let our hand not be upon him. This is Judah talking. For he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Think about this. They're talking about killing him. And they were all in agreement with that. Then he says, hey, I've got a better idea. He's our family. We've got these strong family ties. Let's sell him to somebody so we'll never see him again. What? I thought that was family. He's a little messed up upstairs. Verse 28. Then there passed by the Midianites, merchant men, and they drew up and lifted up Joseph out of the pit. Now, be careful with this. Just because somebody's lifting you out of your pit, whatever pit you're in, don't be surprised if man lifts you up, man doesn't also sell you. They were selling him to be a slave, but they lifted him out of the pit. Don't let man lift you out. God will lift you up, and that'll be for a good reason. He says, they lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. Judah's proposal seemed to be merciful. He says he's our brother, and rather than kill him and, end everything, let's make some money. Actually, it was the cruelty of covetousness, wrapped in a thin veneer of mercy. He said, how am I going to make this plan sound better so they go with what I want? I know, I'll pull out the mercy card. But right under mercy is covetousness. We're going to make money on it. It's not unusual for the malice of covetous men to be masked in a show of generosity and kindness. Watch out. Just because somebody says it doesn't mean they mean it. Watch the crowd they run with. In Matthew 15, verse 8, Jesus says it this way. Matthew 15, 8. This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. That was Judah. His heart was far from family connection. He wanted to sell Joseph and get rid of him, never see him again. Famous verse in Proverbs, I'll just tell you what it says. He says, For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Eat, drink, saith he unto thee, but his heart is not with thee. That's somebody trying to pull a trick on you. They're going to coat mercy on the top of it, but right underneath, buddy, it's all about them. That's that crowd of murderers. This is this mercenary out for money. Judah. He was in it to fill his pocket. And he wanted to sway the brothers. He'd probably give them a percentage. I'll bet you he's pocketing more than the rest of them. It was his plan. I'll talk to them. Y'all just sit over there. I got this. He says in another place in Proverbs, they come in and they say, let us all have one purse. Throw in your lot with us. Put all your money in this bag. Here, I'll carry the bag. It'll be fine, trust me. Now, here's a poem on the origin and mission of money. It says, dung from the mountainside, washed in the glen. This is gold or silver that's come out as a raw product, and then they wash it up. Steal me, I curse you. Earn me, I bless you. Grasp me, hoard me, a foe shall possess you. Lie for me, die for me, covet me, take me. Angel or devil, I am what you make me. The bitterness of ill-gotten gain always outlasts the pleasure of profit. If you make money the wrong way, it doesn't pay, it does the opposite. It weighs on you, weighs you down. Okay, that's Judah, but we've got one more player in our program here. Look at Reuben in Genesis 27, verse 21. And Reuben heard it, and delivered him out of their hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that's in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might deliver him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Okay, Reuben wanted to deliver him. No man can deliver another man. You in a pit? I'm sorry, I can't deliver you from it. I can yell down there and say, I know somebody that can deliver you, but I can't pull you out. God's got to do it. And you've got to be willing to be pulled out. He says here, Reuben wanted to deliver him. Well, he's going to deliver him all right. Sometimes one sin can be cast out by another sin that's more deceitful and devastating. That's a fact. Here the brothers wanted to kill him. Reuben said, no, let's don't kill him. Let's throw him in a pit. Well, that's equally bad. Now, he had this plot going in his mind. When nobody's looking, I'm going to get back up here, and I'm going to take him to Dad, and I'm going to tell him, I'm the big man, you do what I say, or there's more pits that we know about. It doesn't work that way. He replaced one sin for another. All the brethren of Joseph were equally guilty. They all had problems. But they didn't all have the same exact sin they were after. But they were all after sin. The brothers entertained the sin of murder. Reuben, the deception of compromising with sin. He said, yeah, we'll go ahead and put him in a pit, and I'll let y'all think that we're going to leave him there. But he secretly wanted to come back and get him. He was deceiving his brothers. That's another sin. You can't deal with sin as though it's a playmate. Sin doesn't negotiate with man. It destroys him. He wanted to save Joseph, but he wanted to do it secretly because he didn't want to offend the crowd. If the Bible offends somebody, it's better to be without the somebody, because this will last forever. You'll be with God forever. Don't offend him for the sake of the crowd. Judah was bitten with this poisonous puff adder of profit. I'm going to make me some money. They all had a different motive. They all had a different sin. And one can just as easily replace the other. Before we take credit for being free from this sin or that sin, we need to consider whether the absence of this sin or that sin was truly banished by God, or was it replaced by another sin? You may replace murder with compromising on sin, accepting this or accepting that. Don't compromise anywhere. I, in the flesh, can get rid of certain sins physically that you could see and replace them with something more devastating, internal, with attitudes. Sin needs to be gotten rid of. Man can't get rid of it. If you could get rid of it, Jesus Christ's blood didn't wash it away. Ask God to take it. In Acts chapter 7, verse 9, this will be our last verse. Many times, I know this is not the good news you want to hear. Many times you're going to be Joseph, and life is not going to feel fair. It wasn't fair for him. But he had something none of the rest of them knew a thing about, even when he was in the pit. Acts 7, verse 9. And the patriarchs, that's the brothers, moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt. Now, here's the phrase. But God was with him. That makes all the difference. You don't need to be in the murderous crowd. You don't need to worry about offending the crowd and, compromising what you know is right or wrong. If God's with you, none of the rest of that stuff matters. They can throw you in a pit. They can sell you into Egypt. It doesn't matter. God will give you Egypt. And that's exactly what he did.